Hello and welcome to That Bible Guy, dealing with the issues that divide. Before I talk about this video, if you want to go on and subscribe to That Bible Guy if you haven't already, thanks very much. But dealing with the issues that divide, I've traveled the world a bit this year. Praise God for that. And you cannot fail to notice that there are issues that divide us, generational issues, and just different doctrinal issues, relationship issues, historic issues, the way we run the church issues, and so on and so on. And there are many more issues there as well. And one of the things we've all noticed is that developing, that gap can develop more and more. What I want to talk about today is four things that I feel like are essential that I've learned recently and some over time that I feel are critically important for dealing with the issues that divide. The first thing I want to say is, and I've done that this year, is listening and talking. So we have developed some issues within the UK Fellowship of Churches, and there were different sides forming and different views of the past and current issues. And I find myself on one side of the debate and kind of getting one narrative possibly. So this year I decided to go off to Turkey to a leaders conference. I decided to go to other events. I went off this recent times also to Estonia to a teaching conference, knowing that there was people from different sides. I don't like using the term, but that's the reality for how to describe it at the moment. And what I want to do is hear the other side, hear another viewpoint about the narrative, about the story of what has happened. And I went off and I felt like, let me give opportunity to hear another slant on what it is I've heard about in terms of other people's viewpoints. And one of the things I'd say then is it's very important, and I find myself at risk of doing this, is watch out in a debate about whatever it is, not to demonize the other person without information. I said when I was at their conference recently that I will be accountable to God for my views of whatever I knew the facts to be. So watch before you accept every detail about a situation, and watch out for demonizing. The best way to watch out for demonizing someone, it's critically important that we listen and talk. So get the other person's viewpoint and listen, genuinely listen. That's the first thing, listen and talk. The second thing is, and I also said this recently as well at the teaching conferences, and I've seen the need for this, we need to go there. We need to actually engage in the big topics, whatever they are. We need to actually state, have the courage, I know that was taught recently also at the teaching conference, the courage to actually get into the topics that matter, the big topics. We need to go there. We need to not just keep sweeping the difficult stuff under the carpet, whether it be doctrinal issues, the way we do ministry issues, generational issues, the way we engage with certain topics, whatever it is, the way we do whatever it is, do we engage in those topics? Are we willing to get them out there and talk about them in the right way, of course, but just having the courage to actually get into these conversations. We know what it's like when you have to address something with someone. Sometimes it's so easy to just not want to say anything, but we need to engage the topics. Be willing to express what we think in an honest way. So in line with that, as we talk about the big topics and the issues that divide, I think we need to be willing and able and have the courage to actually express our conviction. And with those topics, I think it's important to have conviction. Sometimes as we move forward, I feel like some people feel like, well, it's best just to be malleable with almost everything. And I'm not always of that viewpoint. I think I need to have a conviction till someone, tells me otherwise, but I need to decide also about that conviction in the next couple of points here. So the first one is listen and talk. The second one is the courage to go there in the conversations with the topics that matter. In fact, on that one, I had a conversation with someone traveling back from the teaching conference, and they had an issue about the war in Ukraine, about whether you should fight or not fight. Their view was that you shouldn't fight. And I had a big conversation with them about it, but the issue that we both agreed on at the end was his church hadn't put out a strong stance on what their view was, giving people the balanced argument. Well, there's two arguments here, two sides to this. Here, so you can be fully informed, is the two sides. We haven't made up our mind yet. We have made up our mind, and sometimes people are not just willing to say what they think, acknowledging that there are two sides. So I think that's an example of the idea of the need to say what we actually think on a subject. That's the first one, listen and talk. Second one's need to go there. The third one is not rushing to condemn people. Like, so that we don't read into other people, so we don't rush to condemn, because other people, in terms of them having an opposite viewpoint to you, have maybe very often read into the issue as well. And I think that's becoming ever more obvious to me on big topics like the women's role. When I get talking to people, I realize, you know what, they have read into this. They're not just making this up necessarily to suit their cultural narrative. They actually do have a conviction from Scripture. And again, it's if someone hasn't read, when you are talking about the big discussion points like women's role and other things, today, gender issues, homosexuality, if you've got a strong conviction, have you read into this topic? How did you come to that conclusion? If you are talking with someone and there's a strong conviction, it was like, well, how did you come to that conclusion? Where do you get this evidence from? I use that in the world of apologetics and reaching out, but also in the in-house discussions that we have as well. I was reading a commentary recently on 1 Corinthians, and I noticed that the person writing the commentary, which I really respect, said this. It was about spiritual gifts in 1 Corinthians 12, and he was more of a cessationist. Or sorry, I'm a cessationist. He was more of the view that the miraculous gifts have carried on today. And that's fine. It's an in-house debate about whether the miraculous gifts are available today or not. But at one point of the article, when he was making his argument for the fact that they've carried on, he says, those who have the cessationist viewpoint are wrong. And the terminology and the way he described it, I thought, that's not a very good way to put it. I don't go to engage in conversation with those who disagree with me by going, you are wrong. I might say it, here's what I think. So at present, that would make you wrong, but there's a way to communicate something. And you don't just shut down someone else's viewpoint, because you know that there are scholars on the other side as well. People very well read on the other side, so I have to respect that, while still holding on to my conviction. And again, as we communicate those things, watching out for our language, like this commentary, I think watching out for his language would have been a good idea. So it's the first one, listen and talk. Second one, we need to go there in the conversations. Third one, not rushing to condemn, remembering that both sides have often read into this. And the fourth one is understanding and working out, do we have red lines? It's a very common phrase I've heard over the last year in regards to politics in Northern Ireland. But do we have red lines? Do we have lines that we won't allow ourselves to cross? Things that we just can't tolerate, we can't accept? I think we should. We can't accept everything. There are clearly things that we can't move on. We just have to decide what they are. Do we know what they are? And is this topic that's up for debate at the moment another red line? If we've got too many red lines, maybe we need to figure that one out. And this will come down to conscience. We cannot accept in good conscience things that we think are wrong. And that's why the conversation I had with someone who he just couldn't accept that anyone would go and fight in the war. And that's a whole big debate for another day. But I thought the burden lies with him. If you feel like your red line is on this issue, then you can't accept another alternative. Now, I would encourage him to chat, discuss, read into this, but you may have a red line on that issue. Now, on that one, Romans 14, verse 22 says, in talking about food sacrificed to idols and dealing with disputable matters, it says, so whatever you believe about these things, keep between yourself and God. So sometimes we've got strong convictions, and we need to keep them between ourselves and God, because we don't believe it's a red line. Other people have other views, and that's okay. But here's what it says. Blessed is the man who does not condemn himself by what he approves. And I share this because the idea that if something is not disputable to us and we have it as a red line, then clearly we can't condemn ourselves in our conscience by approving of something that's not acceptable to us. Now, I would encourage us, if we have those, to engage in dialogue. As I've got older as a Christian, I realize there's not many areas like that for me. There are some, and I've got to have conviction about them, and I won't move on them unless I can be convinced otherwise. But I need to work out where my red lines are. Where are the lines that, and I won't allow myself to cross that line. So working out what is that, because conscience is very important. So 4 things today, dealing with the issues that divide or can divide. 1, we've got to listen and talk to others. We've got to express what we think and go there in the conversations. Don't be too quick to condemn others, and watch out for our language in that area. And the 4th thing is work out, where do you have red lines? Because like I say, we will need to have red lines. We do need to have conviction. We just need to work out how far can I go and not go. I hope this has helped us today. It's an ongoing debate. Please let me know your thoughts on this or what sorts of things you're dealing with in your church or the worldwide fellowship at large. If you like this today, please hit the like button. Please share this on for other people. Please subscribe to that Bible Guy if you haven't already. And let's get his word out there.